At the beginning of the film, we see three kids, most probably bullies. One of them throws a robot toy at Henry, breaking it on the wall. Soon, a man scares away the bullies. This man is Henry's father. He is disappointed. Later, Henry is an adult now and wakes up in a lab. A beautiful woman can be seen as Henry gets out of a pod. He doesn't have a left arm or a left leg. The woman's name is Estelle. She attaches a prosthetic arm and leg. Henry can't remember anything and doesn't even have his voice. Estelle seems emotional for him and soon says they are both married. After getting up, Estelle hands over their wedding ring. They walk out and meet more of her co-workers. Henry is placed in another pod to fix his voice. But soon the lights turn red and the steel door flies open, crushing one of the co-workers. A person named Aachen walks in and assumes Henry was created by Estelle, his wife. He takes advantage of the situation by touching Estelle inappropriately. Aachen asks one of the co-workers how Henry came here. The co-worker explains he has lost his limbs and damaged his head pretty badly. Aachen is not a normal human being and has telekinetic powers. He uses his abilities to pick up the co-worker and murders him. Estelle looks for an opportunity and makes a loud noise, giving everyone a headache. Henry and Estelle run out. While running through a room full of dead bodies, Estelle says she resurrected him and also wants to do the same with other people. They make them to the escape pod. After launching it, we learn the lab was in the sky. The pod falls and crashes on a bridge. Henry manages to take out Estelle as she seems injured, but some soldiers walk up to them on the bridge. Estelle tells Henry to fight and so he does. He manages to knock out some of the goons, but they kidnap Estelle and in the fight, Henry falls off the flyover. Henry tries to run and hides in an empty container. He fights and stabs the first soldier to walk in. Snatches the gun, he shoots some more bad guys. Some soldiers try to crush him with a car, but an unknown vehicle pushes them aside. A man walks out of the car and shoots some of the soldiers. His name is Jimmy. Jimmy knows who Henry is and takes him into a car. He instructs Henry to open the glove box where he finds some cables to charge himself. A few moments later, some cops pull them over to ask some questions. But they are working for Aachen and trying to shoot Henry. Jimmy saves him and accelerates the car, but one of the cops blows his head. Henry quickly gets out and enters a subway, but the cops are present there as well. He fights and shoots them to death. Henry gets out of the subway and enters the first bus he sees. He takes a seat and suddenly a guy sits in front of him. He is Jimmy. The Jimmy we saw earlier was a clone, and this Jimmy dressed up as a beggar is the real one. The real Jimmy removes a tracker from Henry's wrist. Jimmy gives Henry a location and tells him to find a guy named Dimitri and steal his charge pad from the chest. After completing the mission, Henry is supposed to meet up again with Dimitri. A man in a silver coat arrives. Jimmy, after noticing the funny-looking man, peeks out of the window to mock him. But the man pulls out a flamethrower, burning Jimmy alive. Henry picks up a pistol and runs towards the location he was instructed by Jimmy. He reaches the area and sees the potential target building. He climbs up and enters an empty room. On his way, he notices 3 enemies and kills them with his gun. He finally finds Dimitri, but he seems unconscious. He doesn't wake up even after kicking Dimitri. There are some monitors in front of Dimitri. Suddenly, Estelle appears on them and explains Aachen is trying to make his robot army that will be unstoppable. But turning around, Dimitri is missing and knocks Henry. Henry, using his gun, jumps out the window to chase him. They are running through a market, but some paintings are making Dimitri trip. Henry catches up to him and starts beating him up. While interrogating Dimitri, he tries to speak something about Jimmy, but before he can finish talking, someone from behind shoots him in the head. The shooters open fire on Henry, but he drags Dimitri's body to retrieve the charging pad. He then escapes from the shooters. Now, Henry goes to the location he was supposed to meet Jimmy. The location is a brothel where we see another of Jimmy's clones. He is clearly in a hangover and is having fun with beautiful girls. While walking up to Jimmy, Henry loses power and starts to stumble. Henry plugs in the power cord and leaves Henry with the pretty girls. Looking at Henry, the girls turn on and start touching him. He hallucinates about his past quality time with Estelle. Soon, a normal behaving Jimmy arrives and wakes up Henry. Now that Henry's charging is full, he is back into action. Henry wants to know how there are different variants of Jimmy, but just when Jimmy is going to explain everything, some of the bad guys walk in. The normal Jimmy runs away while the hungover Jimmy wakes up. Henry runs out and starts shooting the goons. He walks into a room where Aachen is sitting sinisterly. Aachen, using his powers, murders an innocent man. He also starts using his powers on Henry. He slams Henry around the room and then throws him into an air duct. The air duct breaks and Henry lands inside the parking lot. The hungover Jimmy falls right beside him dead. Another variant of Jimmy arrives. Both Jimmy and Henry find the wounded soldier and torture him for information. From behind, two dominant assassin girls arrive and want to kill Aachen for ruining their brothel. Moments later, Jimmy and Henry ride a bike to chase some of Aachen's soldiers. On a highway, Henry with a machine gun destroys some of Aachen's van. Later, he jumps on a van killing a few soldiers. One of the soldiers shoots Jimmy as he falls. Henry with a hand grenade destroys another van. The dominant assassin girls help Jimmy to reach the main van. Henry enters the van and starts killing the soldiers. Just then, he finds Estelle trapped in jail. He frees her and reunites. Aachen from one of the many monitors talks to Henry. He mocks both of them. Suddenly, one of the sides blows up, and Aachen with a few soldiers walk in. They hold Estelle at gunpoint while Aachen knocks out Henry using a baseball bat. Henry gains consciousness and sees some soldiers trying to bury him alive. Another clone of Jimmy kills the soldiers and saves Henry. He also meets a woman, but soon enough she dies from an explosion behind her. Henry starts running as more soldiers are tailing him. They even have a tank crushing trees. He keeps running and kills some of the soldiers. He chops off his enemies using a katana. A chopper with more soldiers attacks him. He starts climbing the rope and kills some more soldiers. But before reaching the top, the soldiers cut off the rope. Henry then takes a look at his phone, on which he gets a new location to meet Jimmy. After reaching the location, he looks around, but no one can be seen. Soon, Jimmy rises and is wearing camouflage with a sniper. They both leave and enter an old building where Jimmy has set up his lab. But on his way, Henry notices some dirty police officers are trying to molest a girl. He kills some cops and squeezes the crotch area before shoving a shotgun into his mouth. After saving the girl, he enters the lab where a video is playing. The video shows us Jimmy was working with Aachen, helping him to create the robot army. But something goes wrong with the project and Aachen crushes the original Jimmy, shattering his spine. Just then, the original Jimmy in a wheelchair enters the room and introduces many of his variants through a dance. But one of the variants, which are dressed as a punk, accuses Henry of broadcasting his vision to Aachen. Henry had no idea Aachen had access to his vision. Because of this, more of Aachen's soldiers are heading right toward them. The original Jimmy wants to trust Henry and decides to help him. Henry with three variants, who are Sniper Jimmy, Punk Jimmy, and Colonel Jimmy, climbs up the building fully geared to fight the soldiers. Henry manages to get some kills while Punk Jimmy fights them from the ground. But an explosion kills him as well. The Sniper Jimmy tells Henry to find Colonel Jimmy. The Sniper Jimmy jumps off the building with grenades. Colonel Jimmy and Henry kill many of the soldiers who have entered the building. They meet the original Jimmy, but more soldiers surround them, leaving no choice but to surrender. But the colonel blows up the roof, crushing the soldiers beneath. They escape in a car and reach Aachen's headquarters. They get jumped by some of his robot soldiers but kill them. They enter the building. Unfortunately, Colonel Jimmy damages his neck in the fight. Before dying, Jimmy explains to Henry that they have met before all this chaos. His memories are just a little blurry. Just then, Henry's few other memories return. Colonel Jimmy dies and original Jimmy is about to die from a wound. He says Henry was a really good friend. He also says to look straight into Aachen's eyes before ending him. Henry proceeds on his journey to kill Aachen. He enters a room with a big screen that shows Aachen's robot army is ready and that all of them woke up just like Henry. Estelle claimed to be their wife and tried to be emotional. Aachen frees the robot army onto Henry. He starts fighting them, killing them in different ways. He stabs some, pokes out some of their eyes, blows them up with a hand grenade, and shoots some. After defeating the robot army, Henry gets on the roof to defeat Aachen. But Aachen, using his telekinetic powers, slam Henry on the floor. Henry can't believe it when he sees Estelle making out with Aachen. Aachen, seeing the opportunity, mocks Henry and kicks him, making him turn. On a shiny glass, first time in the movie we get a glimpse of Henry's face, which looks like his father's face. But this time, his dad explains his old man used to call him pussy and that's why he would never call Henry anything like that. He explains he killed the wrong people in his days and not to do the same when Neri grows up. Henry gets a surge to fight back and uses 2 adrenaline shots on himself to get a little energy. Some of the remaining robots of Aachen attack Henry, but he kills them easily. Henry finds a barbed wire which he wraps around his fist. He climbs the launch pad and punches Aachen. Henry, in rage, tears up Aachen's hand, giving him severe pain. Aachen, in pain, uses his powers to push away Henry. Henry still manages to get close and punches Aachen while Estelle is yelling at Henry to stop. Henry pulls out his eye and wraps the wire around Akin's jaw. Using his strength he decapitates Akin. Estelle running away in the chopper is scared. Henry jumps inside the chopper showing Akin's decapitated head. Estelle shoots Henry several times but Henry uses his robotic arm to reflect the bullet back to her. Estelle trips and falls out, but she holds on to the chopper telling Henry to listen to his heart. But Henry coldly slams down the chopper door crushing her fingers and letting her fall.